Can you identify this image that has been drawn in this paper, let alone identifying the image? Now, I think you are wondering, how does this image relate to programming and software development? Well, to answer you, I've got a video that teaches people how drawing taught me coding and best practice and software development and architectural practices. So go to this channel and follow this series, YouTube reverse engineering, and then you will find this video, and then you will know more details about how drawing can teach you a thing or two about software development. Now let's talk about the principle and good practice of software development. One of the good practices of software development is code reusability. Talking about reusing thing, let's reuse this paper, to flip it, and then we can write something else. This is a series of videos where I'm reverse engineering the platform YouTube. I'm going to do that also for other bigger platforms, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. What I'm hoping for you to learn in this series is I want you to get a bigger platform has been created. The reason is most YouTube developers and coding channels, they don't teach you this concept. They just get into coding and that is it. Do you really think that on YouTube, when they are about to introduce, let's say, a podcast in their feature, when they are about to introduce a podcast into their feature, the so-called manager or tech lead meets, talks to a developer, and the developer must run a code? This means that they start from a request for the feature, and then from then the tech lead will then talk to the developer, and then the developer will code. Do you think this is a process that they are using? Of course not. They are supposed to be smarter than that, or I believe they are smarter than that. Then let's just get into details. How do they plan their code before coding, the steps that are before coding? Obviously, I must tell you that object-oriented analysis and design, it's a bit of a concept that is outside the scope of coding. But I am bringing it in because most YouTube channels, they don't even talk about these concepts. These concepts are very important, and also they might help you as a freelancer or as a developer that might be interested on climbing up the corporate ladder. These are the concepts that you need to understand, at least for you to be promoted, or at least to move from just being a developer to be a senior developer, maybe from senior developer to be a tech lead, maybe from tech lead, who knows, maybe a CEO. Now let's jump straight to it. So I was just trying to say this might be a little bit of an advanced or a not easy to understand concept, but I'm going to break it down for you in such a way that you understand at least what it is. Then you can go and make your own research and also try to implement it in your own design. So in the YouTube team or in the YouTube family, or so they don't just receive a request for a feature, and then the team lead or tech lead will talk to a developer, and the developer will jump straight into code. At least there is a formal way and a formal method that helps them to make sure that when they reach this stage, which is coding, at least they get a perfect system, or at least a close to perfect system. Number one, that is easy to understand. Number two, that has a reference point, meaning that when they want to discuss a feature, they don't have to open Visual Studio Code or whatever code editor that they are using and they start discussing the feature. I'm assuming that they are pulling some papers that have got diagrams where they can discuss that this is the mother, and the mother has these two kids, and these two kids, this is their father, and these two kids, they've got distant cousins. So it's easier for them to discuss things this way rather than as we do as YouTube developers and coders, to open the code and just code. So let's breathe in and out. Let's step back a little bit, move our hands from coding. Let's talk about object-oriented analysis and design. I'm going to make this simple. I'm not going to bring complicated terms. This just means planning, but planning in a object-oriented fashion. So I'm not gonna get into advanced topic, but I'm just gonna give you a helicopter view of what is going on in the object-oriented analysis and design. Let's say YouTube, they receive a request, a new request. They are adapting to the ever-changing needs of the market. They feel like, okay, fine, there is a feature that we are missing on, and that is a podcast. So now we want to introduce a podcast into the system. Do they jump straight to code? Obviously, I have said no. So what do they do then? What are those software engineers do before they get into the podcast? Number one, they pull the object-oriented analysis and design of the YouTube platform as it is. What might that look like? This is more of the object analysis and design. This is more of an artistic phase, because here we are going to talk of class diagram. So let's say they will pull a class diagram for the YouTube system, let's say. And then this is a class diagram. Okay, the real class diagram looks similar like this one, but I'm not going to get into details on the minute details of the class diagram, but I'm just going to give you an example of what it looks like. So this is the existing class diagram of the YouTube channel. These are the classes that works together to serve you as somebody who want to search something on YouTube, or as me as a creator who wants to upload videos and teach people. So these are different classes. Let's say this class will be analytics, and this class will be community, and this class will be homepage. So it's responsible for rendering all the things that relates to the homepage. This is the existing UML diagram, or a class diagram. So this is what they will do. They will check in this diagram, where does this podcast feature, or how is it going to be joined? Is it going to be joined on the analytics? Is it part of community? Is it part of the home? Or where does it sit into this entire plan? And then they will find out, okay, podcast, maybe it sits somewhere here, let's say on publishing, because the user want to publish something. Obviously this example might not be relevant, but I'm just giving you an idea. So it fits on publishing. Okay, now under publishing, we are not going to only have some we are not only going to have the subtype, which is videos only. Now let's introduce another way, which is a podcast. So this class is going to sit right here. So video inherits publishing, and also now we are going to have podcast inheriting from publishing. Guys, this is just a very minimalistic bird's eye view of object-oriented analysis and design. But basically what you do in the OOAD, number one, you define a problem that, okay, this is the problem that we are trying to solve. Number two, what are the components, what are the things that are involved in this, how are the different parts of the system going to work together in order to solve a problem? And then that's where we're going to introduce a class diagram. So this means that in the class diagram, you see visually different classes and how they interact with each other, obviously in the object-oriented manner. Meaning that some classes might inherit from the other one, some others might be the interfaces for the other ones. So if you want to know more about interfaces, please check my channel, and under playlist I've got a playlist or a course, Conceptual Object-Oriented Programming. You will get more information there. So the object-oriented analysis and design, this is where you clearly define the problem, and also you map out how these different components, different parts of the system are going to work together in order to achieve a goal. So let's just continue with that example. Now, first of all, they have defined that, okay, the feature that we are going to create is going to be a class, and this class is going to inherit from publishing. So it's going to be a child of publishing, and publishing is a parent to this class. And this is some sort of a relationship between this class and this one. Why this is important? This means that, first of all, it helps the team to really understand that which part is involved. Whenever they want to work on podcasts, they just don't jump all over the place and run up and down through code, but they know that based on this diagram, they will just look for the parent class, which is publishing, and then they will work on publishing. Let's say then they have got a developer, maybe working remotely, sitting right next to me in South Africa. They can just give this developer this part, this class, and say that this is the UML for this class. This class is called publishing. So based on the method and static method and properties that it has, we want you to write a child, or to write a class that is called podcast that will inherit from the publishing class. And then from then, this is what we want it to do. So I would like to assume, or I believe it's easier to explain things this way than a written text, like writing an email to say that we are expecting this. But if we can give you this and also give you this and say that, okay, come up with a class that will do this, based on, the developer will know that these are the functions that are publicly available, these are the functions that are privately available, and he can go working independently without any supervision. And when he's done, he will just send back the code, and the code will be plugged in, will be joined into the whole bigger picture. So this can help for communicating the intent or the purpose of the overall system, or what needs to be done, in this case adding a feature. However, since we are talking about object oriented, meaning that this is object oriented, classes are not just created for the sake of being classes. For instance, let's say I've got an accounting system that has got item. I can't just create a class item that will have the item name, the item color, and whatever, and I say that this is a class. Obviously, practically and technically, this is a class. But when we talk of object-oriented analysis and design, you want to define first, what is this class doing? What type of an item it is? What type of an item it is? What are the properties that are going to be involved here, and what are the method? And also, what are the responsibilities of this class? Let's talk about compression. Are we going to compress a lot of things in this class such that this class become a God class? A God class is a class that does everything, of which is a problem. That means now our code, sorry about that. That means then our code will be tightly coupled, because this class is a God class. Excuse me. It knows everything, of which now when we want to change something that relates to this class, we will always find it here. When we want to change something, we will always find it. This is a problem because this is a tightly coupled code. Then now in the object-oriented analysis and design, we need to make those decisions. What are the things that are going to be involved in this class? Then that's where we're going to introduce a solid principle, the S in the solid principle, to say that this class must have one reason and only one reason to change. Meaning that it must stick to a scope of what it is or its nature. If it's an item, it must stick to that nature and take away or outsource all other activities that doesn't relate to a class. However, also, this doesn't mean that it's an easy to go to, a low-hanging fruit to say that I have got a class that will just move away or push away all other functions to wherever the client code or calling class outside. Because remember, we need to understand the distribution of labor or of the code. What is going to be done in this class and what is going to be done on the other class, depending on those decisions, you can come up with a best, clean and efficient code, or you can come up with a code that is harder to maintain and difficult to extend, because this code does a lot of things, or it does too little. So the problem that you might get into, when it does too much, it becomes a God class. It's tightly coupled. But now if it does a little, then you end up with a class explosion, meaning that you've got too many classes that are not, I hope this is visible, you've got too many classes that are difficult to understand, because these classes, they just do little things. This item, okay, so you will find out that you will get into a problem of class explosion, because you've got these too many classes that does a little, and that is the problem. How do you figure that out? Believe me, you don't figure out that in Visual Studio Code or in Sublime Text. You don't. And that's the reason why I created this course, to give you an idea of what happens before the coding, because coding channels don't tell you what happens before the coding channel. They won't tell you what other YouTube engineer or software engineer are discussing before they get into code. I'm Matthew Msingati, the designer and developer. If you feel like this ad has added value into your overall understanding of object-oriented analysis and design and helped you to gain an insight into YouTube's engineering and how it has been constructed, please do me a favor.